According to the International Bureau of Expositions, World Expos are global gatherings committed to the tasks of sharing inventions and seeking solutions to challenges of the times, and the first one, known as the Great Exhibition, opened in London in 1851. So what have been some of the innovations showcased at World Expos? What is behind the heated competition to host these global gatherings? And what are the broader gains of hosting World Expos? Welcome to Issues and Insiders. Today we explore the heated competition to host World Expos and their broader ripple effects. For this, I have Professor Nicholas Cull at the University of Southern California live on the line. Professor Cull, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be with you. Hello there.
Right. I also have Kwon Soa here in the studio with me. Soa, it's good to have you back.
Good afternoon, Sunny.
Right. So let's begin then with some background information about the World Expo. What is it, when did it start, and how long does it normally last?
Well, a World Expo, also sometimes referred to as a World's Fair, is a large international exhibition that showcases achievements in various different fields ranging from science and technology to culture and industry. Now, the organizer of the event, the Bureau International des Expositions, on its website describes World Expos as global events dedicated to finding solutions to fundamental challenges facing humanity. And these challenges are addressed through the theme of the expo, based on which the world engages in a bid to spur progress and cooperation. It's basically a platform for international dialogue. And the first World Expo was held in London in 1851, the Great Exhibition of the Works of Industry of All Nations, or in short, the Great Exhibition. Now, following this first international exhibition, such World's Fairs gained more and more popularity. The World Expo that our own memories can trace back to are organized by the BIE and are being held usually every 5 years. The most recent expo was held in the city of Dubai in the United Arab Emirates in 2020, and the next host is Osaka, Japan in 2025. World Expos take place for 3 to 6 months. In the recent past, it's usually 6 months. For the ordinary people making visits to such expos, it's like a global festivity with eye-catching pavilions, endless activities, cultural experiences, and so forth. And for the host city or country, it means an opportunity to promote the place to the world for a long time. For some, it's longer than others, or for some, it remains for a longer memory than others. And also, it's an opportunity to be remembered for various of events or outcomes that take place during those months longs of the hosting. And all in all, it then leads to economic benefits, and about which we're going to speak in more detail later on.
Right. So before I ask you about those benefits, Professor Cull, how do you explain the heated competition, perhaps, to host a World Expo?
Well, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for a country to be seen, and everybody likes to be a good host. And an expo is a tremendous opportunity to be a host and to show that you've arrived on the world stage. It's a way of giving a gift to the international community.
Right. And so before we proceed any further, do tell us a bit about some of the inventions that were previously shared during World Expos, many of which I understand we now take for granted.
Right. Sometimes
yes.
These expos lead to evolutionary outcomes. So for the first one, Sonny, you can guess the first one that I want to mention. I'll give you a hint. We're currently on... We're currently on
television.
Television, exactly, yes. So television broadcasting was actually showcased at the 1938 New York World Expo. While television was invented by Philo Taylor Farnsworth in 1927, but it was later on at this expo, it was exhibited, or you could say the debut of television broadcasting was made years later. And also the telephone, invented by Alexander Graham Bell, was first revealed at the 1876 Expo in Philadelphia. The typewriter, elevator, the washing machine all made their debuts at World Expos. Food items also were unveiled at the World Expos, some of them really famous until today. For example, the ice cream cone and the Heinz ketchup. Although we do not really recall expos for their revelation of these inventions that we use on a daily basis and take for granted today, it's a different story when it comes to architectural attractions that were unveiled at past expos. So the Statue of Liberty, the Space Needle, the Ferris wheel, and even the Eiffel Tower. So landmarks like the Eiffel Tower are now a symbol of its city, Paris, and country, France, meaning expos can become real historic milestones. The then tallest building in the world was unveiled in its Paris World Expo in 1889.
Right, and for some reason, when you asked me about the thing invented at the World Expo, showcase at the World Expo, I was thinking about the Eiffel Tower. So when you said we are currently on, I was really confused about the Eiffel Tower. Anyways, moving forward, Professor Cull. Now, the most recent World Expo, as Soa mentioned earlier, was the 2020 event, which of course was held a year afterwards because of the pandemic. Now, speaking within your capacity as a scholar, what do you believe have been the broader diplomatic implications of this expo for the United Arab Emirates?
Oh, I think it was an opportunity for countries to come to the UAE and to reach out not just to the Emiratis themselves, but to people from across the region. And I thought that expo was really important because of the way in which Dubai is a meeting place, with many guest workers working within Dubai who were able to introduce themselves through their national pavilions to other people who live in Dubai. So that expo to me was a very special event because it was a truly global mixing. And the truth is that at many expos, it's dominated by the theme of introducing the world to a particular population. So Shanghai in 2010, it was really for Chinese people, not for people from around the world. Similarly, Milan, Italy in 2015 was more about Italians meeting countries from around the world. But Dubai was the world meeting the world. In fact, one of the really fun events at Dubai, the Irish government pavilion organized a choir with maybe 160 different countries' citizens taking part. So it was the greatest, the most international choir ever created. It got the world's record for world's most international choir. And that's exactly the sort of thing that happens at World Expos, people coming together and doing something new and amazing. And we know that the memories people make at expos last a lifetime. So it's a tremendously exciting and rewarding thing to be part of.
Right, as Soa mentioned, of course, it was really impressive, that choir itself. And Soa, now back to Busan. What have been some of the projected economic gains of the Busan World Expo for South Korea?
Right. You always want to know how much money does this actually make? Do we actually make money out of it? So first, the profit estimated from hosting the expo, a whopping 61 trillion won, or roughly 46 billion US dollars. That's according to the Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade. And breaking it down, that's 43 trillion won, or $32.6 billion worth of induced production, and 18 trillion won, or $13.6 billion in added value. And that would be 4 times more than generated during the 2002 World Cup and twice the amount gained at the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. And this comes down after calculations made if we consider that 50.5 million people from 200 countries would visit Busan during the 6 months of its hosting. Expos reap economic benefits in various forms, from creating jobs to boosting tourism. The 2030 World Expo, if held in Busan, is in fact expected to create some 500,000 jobs. Now, if Busan wins the bid, Korea will become the 7th country in the world to host all 3 mega global events, the Olympics and the World Cup and the World Expo. And I also wanted to mention that we did have expos back in Yeosu and also in Daejeon, but those were not World Expos. They were also organized by the BIE, but they were different types of expos, just to clarify that.
Right, specialized expos, I believe. Beyond the potential economic merits, Professor Cull, what look to be the possible diplomatic merits of hosting the 2030 World Expo for South Korea?
Well, I think just reminding people what Korea is able to do, I think it's really important for the image of the country to get people out of Seoul and to say, you know, Korea is not just about Seoul. So I hope that that will be one of the benefits, to remind people that there are amazing cities, with Busan being the most obvious, outside of the capital. I think the problems that the world faces right now are too big for any one nation to fix on its own. And that means we're going to have to cooperate. So a forum like an expo, which is all about cooperation and all about sharing ideas, is a tremendous way of energizing the nations of the world around the tasks, the shared tasks on which our future depends. And I think this was already done very well at the Yosu Expo in 2012, which, although it was small, had amazing ideas about taking better care of our oceans. And I'm so excited that there's an opportunity for South Korea to bring the world together in Busan around really important themes.
Right. So as several foreign media have been quick to point out, Korea is leveraging its corporate as well as civilian networks to win its bid. Could you tell us a bit about the events right now that coincide with, of course, the visit by the BIE delegation in Busan for its on-site inspection?
Right. In a bid to strengthen, to leverage its strengths, Korea's conglomerates have banded together, I should say, to actively promote the country's bid, be it in financing advertisements or promotions abroad whenever they make business trips to other countries and to meet with their global partners. Now, during the one-week inspection period, the BIE delegation must have noticed the great support of Korea's top businesses as they bolstered their efforts in line with these on-site inspections. First off, businesses welcomed the delegation in Seoul with a variety of banners and organized numerous promotional and charity events. And these banners are erected at company stores, department stores, Incheon International Airport, and train stations as well. Also in Gwanghwamun Square on Monday in downtown Seoul, Samsung Electronics, LG, Hyundai Motor Group, SK, Shinsegae, CJ E&M, and SPC showcased their latest products and technologies at the Lighted Up Expo outdoor exhibition. In Busan, meanwhile, South Korea's tech giant Samsung Electronics displayed massive banners that showed messages supporting the bid at 7 store branches in Busan, and is also promoting its latest Galaxy S23 series with new advertisements at major bus stops in the city as well. And then another top Korean company we can think of is LG Electronics, which installed electronic displays supporting the bid at destinations the delegation traveled to, like Incheon International Airport again, Seoul Station, and Gimhae International Airport. Hyundai Motor Group released a promotional video on YouTube ahead of the inspection team's visit titled Busan Citizens Invite You All, which introduces the city in 15 languages of BIE member countries. And although not a Korean company, Mercedes-Benz Korea chipped in as well by holding a marathon in Busan Sunday, along with a donation for educational and medical expenses in the city. For companies, the expo is an opportunity to tout Korea's technological developments and expand global partnerships. Meanwhile, the BIE delegation is scheduled to leave on Friday. Their inspections started in Seoul Monday and Tuesday. Currently, they are in the city of Busan for the 3rd day, which included an on-site tour of Northport, the main proposed site for the Busan World Expo, and is expected to conclude with a fireworks show at Gwanghwamun Beach this evening. And Sunny, I actually was in Busan just a few days ago, not for the Busan Expo, but for a different event. And once I arrived in Busan at the station, it really felt as if the event is going to be hosted in the next month or so. It's because of the fever already being there, and you can see really all the banners wherever you go.
I know. The Busan mayor, actually, Park Hyung-jun, was saying that the people of Busan were already acting as if they had won the bid already. So the enthusiasm is there. And that being said, Professor Cull, have you had the pleasure visiting Busan?
I've not had the pleasure, no. I have visited Korea a number of times, including beautiful Jeju Island. So I'm hoping that I get to come in 2030. So.
Right, we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. Then right now,
Yes.
all your information about Busan will be based probably on your readings about Busan online or elsewhere. That being said, what do you suppose then, Professor, speaking as a person who's looking into the situation from the outside, are Busan's chances perhaps of hosting the 2030 World Expo?
Well, I think the chances are very good. The country to beat is going to be Saudi Arabia, and they have a lot of money to spend. The Saudis spent nearly, I think, $300 million on their pavilion in UAE, and because UAE has had the Expo, because Qatar has had the World Cup, I think Saudi feels it has to have something big of its own, and so they want the Expo too. So they're going to be prepared to spend an immense amount of money. But I think that if you want a community with heart, then Busan will be the one, because the other bids haven't got that kind of spirit and backing from the community. In fact, some countries, the citizens have really felt that the Expo had nothing to do with them. One of the countries that's bid for this time is Ukraine, and obviously Ukraine has a special circumstance because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So I wonder if BIE might say something to Odessa, maybe somehow assuring them that when peace comes back to Ukraine, that they will be favorably considered another time. But it's still too early to begin planning something like an expo, sadly, in the beautiful city of Odessa.
Right. Hopefully peace comes to Odessa very quickly, to the whole of Ukraine, that is, of course. So as Professor Cull mentioned, Busan, it's making its pitch with these sub-themes of sustainable living with nature, technology for humanity, and of course a platform for caring and sharing. As Professor Cull mentioned, a heart, speaking from the heart by the people of Busan there. Could you briefly tell us a bit more about these sub-themes, these objectives that Busan seeks to achieve if it's hosting the 2030 World Expo?
Sure. The 3 sub-themes have been chosen to address global challenges. So the challenge addressed by the theme Sustainable Living with Nature is talking about climate change, and Technology for Humanity deals with the downsides of the digital transformation, and Platform for Caring and Sharing is about inequality among and within nations. So these sub-themes correspond with 3 of the 5 pillars of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals: planet, prosperity, and people. The other 2 are peace and partnership. Now, the main theme under which these 3 sub-themes is transforming our world, navigating toward a better future. And you might think if we've got a number of competitors, whether these all have the same themes or not, but that's not the case. For instance, in the case of Riyadh, Busan's strongest competitor, the theme is the era of change, together for a foresighted tomorrow. It is a different theme, but they actually kind of seem to have the similar ambiance, I would have to say, because amid the development of technology and economy in the past, recently we are dealing with unprecedented challenges like the climate crisis, the pandemic, and digital divide. So because these different kinds of challenges have now emerged, these have become the recent tasks that need to be tackled dramatically. So I think all these competitors that want to bid for the Expo have similar kind of themes, I would have to say.
Right, but Riyadh has more financial support, right, Professor Cull? That's what you were saying earlier. Professor, perhaps we can end with a few words of advice from you regarding for Korea's southern port city of Busan as it hopes to host the 2030 World Expo.
Well, I think you've already done a tremendous job in getting the people involved and showing how much people are welcoming and want the Expo to come to the city. Will have made a tremendous impact on BIE, who have a great nose for or when they see something that's genuinely coming from the heart. I think that success will need some kind of deal with the airlines. This was part of the secret of Expo Dubai, was that the state airline did special deals where you could stay over if you were routing through Dubai. You could spend a day or a couple of days at Expo, and if Korea's Airlines was able to do something similar, so that everybody who was coming to the region and transferring in Korea knew that they could come to Expo, because unfortunately the United States hasn't paid much attention to Expos, and I think needs to wake up to just how fantastic they are. And maybe this could be part of that process, because South Korea's got a great story to tell, and this is an opportunity to bring the world together around the most important themes affecting our shared future. So, hopefully I'll be with you 2030 and be part of this amazing event, this mega event that your city is planning.
Right, hopefully. And before we let you go, Professor Cull, a very brief question. Do you see Korea's soft power securing a tangible boost should Busan host, that is, the 2030 World Cup? Because we've already had our debut on the global stage back in 1988 with the Olympics.
Olympics, yes. Well, I think that when you get to be as obviously successful as South Korea is, the question is, what are you going to do next? And I think South Korea is now in the situation where it has to pay rent on its excellent reputation, and hosting something like a World's Fair is kind of expected now. South Korea is one of the brands that is improving every year. Every year, a few more people in the world learn a little more about South Korea, like South Korea a little more, and admire it a little more. And so this is going to be part of the process.
Right.
It's a long process to build a reputation, but it's so exciting to see how well South Korea is managing with that process. And this is going to be another part of the story, I'm sure.
Right. Professor Cull, I love the metaphor, pay its rent to the world then. All right, Professor, hopefully we see you here 7 years from now. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you so much.
And so, as always, thank you very much for your insights.
Anytime.
Right, well, that is all the time we have for today's edition of Issues and Insiders. Tomorrow, that is Friday, we have a special guest with his thoughts on Korea's classical music and more. Join us then.